And you all know that all the fingers of a hand of a single person also are not same. In that basis, we can say that all the people of society cannot be of same nature, same attitude, and same thinking as well. All people want to be known to all, want to be great and want to be rich. But some of the people do hurry to achieve the success. They want to get whatever they wanted to get within some very short interval of time. In the same way, some of the people move slowly and slowly. They achieve not only the success, they save the dignity as well. If we do hurry to achieve the success, we may go out of track of humanity as well. That time, in name of famous, we get infame as well, disfame as well. Yes, this is the program to salute to those who are famous and to point out the mistake of those who have got lot of infamous. Yes, this is Mega Talk. And I want to say heartfelt welcome and namaste to all of you. Dear viewers, we all know that employment is very essential part of happy life. And to get employment, most of people are compelled to be far from their family, far from their relatives, even far from their country as well. Most of the workers from the Republic of Nepal are compelled to be out of country. And in today's program, we would like to make the topic on the basis of youth and employment. And we want to talk about the questions like, how is the status of workers in Nepal or in Asian countries? Is ILO only for those who are workers or even to those who are deprived of work? And how can we control the overflow of Nepalese youth to go out of country for working? With such questions, I would like to welcome in Mega Television's special show, Mega Talk. And he is the director of ILO for Nepal. He is Mr. Dr. Richard Howard. Dr. Richard, heartfelt welcome in Mega Talk.
I'll be here, thank you.
As I already said, you belong to ILO. You have been working for years in the field of workers. You know well what does ILO do. What can you say? What does ILO do for youths?
Well, overall, the ILO's main focus is on several things, and one of those is to support creation of jobs for people, young and old. The second area of work is to really ensure that those jobs that are created allow, as you said earlier, a sense of dignity in people's work, so that basic rights of workers to obtain what we call decent work is protected. Now, what we mean by decent work is a job with a fair wage, where workplaces are safe, and where workers have access to social security. Social security, things like health insurance, pensions, accident insurance. These are very important for workers and their families. So decent work can only take place when workers are part of an organization, are empowered so they can negotiate with their employers for their rights, and that governments support that open process of negotiation. So ILO is focused on this area.
You are here in Nepal for 1.5 years as director in ILO office. So what have you found the status of employee in Nepal?
Yeah, well, what's most impressive about Nepal now is you're going into elections, and that the major political parties seem to all agree on one thing, and that employment, or jobs here in Nepal, is critical for young people especially. They all recognize that we need to really emphasize economic growth and job creation. So I'm very encouraged by this shift in Nepal. And most people believe that going into this new era of political stability will really create an environment where we can create those jobs for Nepalis at home.
It is said that election is very near, and political parties have main agenda, that is employment and youth. But what we have found that whatever is said, whatever is written in paper, not implemented in case of Nepal. That's very sad moment to talk. But we often say about security as well. While working, there must be security. So what do you think? Most of the people are compelled to be out of their country for working. Can you say they are secure?
Well, it's a complex picture. But the data shows, for example, that about 450,000 people young people enter the workforce or need to enter the workforce every year, and that the local job market can only allow about 10% of those people to find jobs in Nepal. So it's very logical that the rest of the people, or many of those people who can't find jobs at home, will go overseas. So that's a reality that we face. We need more and we need better jobs here in Nepal to keep those young people back in the country. But the situation is complex too, because what we see is that even in some business sectors like construction, where there is a high demand for workers, there's still a preference for people to go overseas. Why young people still go overseas when they can get jobs here at home with the same or higher wages than they can get overseas? That's a big question, and I don't think anyone really knows the answer to that. It's a complex issue.
Whatever you said, that's correct. We have lots of possibilities in own country as well, but we are going time and again overseas. That is not only case of Nepal. Most of the developing countries like Nepal have this problem. Okay, and before you came here in Nepal, you have done years of work in labor in other countries like China, Indonesia, Thailand, other countries. So what have you found the status of its countries in employment?
Well, I mean, what we see, ILO released a global report on youth employment just on Tuesday. And that report shows that overall there have been slight improvements in youth employment, reductions in unemployment across the world. But in Asia, particularly, is still a huge challenge, not only in countries like Nepal, but also in countries like Indonesia, in countries like Cambodia. You see across the region, youth employment is still a challenge. And while you have economic growth in many countries, that growth does not always translate to creation of new jobs. You know, we have a lot of growth that doesn't really lead to significant job creation. So that's a big challenge. And what we need to focus on and learn from in Nepal is that we need to plan for the type of growth which is really job rich and produce many jobs for here at home. But again, we have to look at the quality of jobs. And I think when you talk to young people why they still go overseas, there are many reasons. But clearly, also look at working conditions, the quality of work, the safety of the work environment, the regularity of employment, and access to benefits. So there are other things that we need to improve here at home, not just creation of jobs, the creation of good jobs at home.
It is found that most of the countries, different companies of different countries are willing to look after Nepalese worker. I mean, Nepalese people, right? So what can you say? What is the fact because of which Nepalese are demanded in international market? What do you think?
Well, I mean, that one issue is the issue of the safety of work for Nepali people overseas. I think the experience of people is highly varied. So you find some, say you take construction, you would say, you know, in some countries, in some types of arrangements, the working environment is pretty good. But in others, the working environment is very poor. So it's just a huge range of experiences. So it's hard to generalize and say it's all very bad, but one thing's for sure is that there are risks of going overseas. And I think the government is really shifting away from an approach to promote overseas migration more towards protecting migrant workers overseas. So I think there's an awareness, but again, the implementation issue is a challenge. It's hard for Nepal to really provide services in overseas countries through their consulates or missions overseas. The capacity there, the people there, it's really a limited number of people that can support those workers overseas.
As you said, varieties of people are found here in Nepal. Because of that, they are advantages. But what I've studied or have found articles that Nepalese workers are cheaper in comparison to other countries' workers. Is it so?
Not necessarily. You know, I mean, I think there is variation between Nepalis and other types of workers in some countries. So I don't think that the wage rates are significantly different. What you may find a difference is how much the cost of migration for the worker and the amount of money they have to pay through various fees, both formal and informal, to recruitment agencies, that varies considerably. So the cost of migration for many workers is very high. What you see is that these workers go overseas and they're already in debt as much as 1 to 2 years of salary in debt to those who help them to identify the opportunities and migrate. So that's a huge challenge for migrant workers.
You belong to ILO, and does ILO have any issues related to that, like dignity of labor?
Well, I mean, all of our work is to promote what we call decent work with dignity. And the best way to achieve that is to support workers' rights to form trade unions and other associations and negotiate for their rights. When workers in many of the GCC countries, they're not allowed to form unions. They're not allowed often to participate in unions. So they really have no voice, no collective voice to argue or to negotiate for what they deserve. So it's really hard to achieve full dignity.
Can you say this is human right? Can you talk about human rights?
Well, ILO is basically an organization to promote human rights at work.
Okay.
Right.
So if they can't speak the trouble they have, if they can't raise the voice of their pain, so can you say they have human rights?
Well, not entirely, no. And for ILO, we have a set of principles that we expect all of our member states to adhere to. And one of those most fundamental rights is what we call the freedom of association, that we can form organizations and that we can negotiate through collective bargaining with employers along our rights. So that's a basic human right recognized by ILO. The entire UN system and global community, the people should have that right.
As you said before, lots of chances out there to get job in one country as well, but we Nepalese have not thought of that. That's why many youths, around 1,500 youths per day, are getting out of country for searching job. What do you think? Is this good for a country or not?
I think it's a challenge that in some sectors you have actual labor shortages. In construction, for example, skilled masons and other types of specialized construction jobs are very much a labor shortage in those areas. So that's not necessarily good for Nepal. I think the whole vision of the government now, regardless of political party, is that they must create jobs at home. But getting back to your point earlier, it's really how they do that. It's going to take some major steps to create an environment where businesses can grow and create more jobs. There are a lot of challenges there. For example, if we look at foreign investment challenges, companies find it very difficult to invest, foreign companies, in Nepal. Bringing the money in, investing, developing the partnerships they need. It's just challenges all along there. So we have to improve the investment climate, not only for foreign investors, but also for local companies need as well.
Okay, for that, political stability is very essential, and there should be the security of the investment as well. Okay, that's not found till date in Nepal. That's why whatever the local industries were there are closed now, and international companies are still not open well in Nepal. That's why lacking of, let's say, jobs are here. And as a result of that, we are compelled to go out. But in name of sending outside, or in name of giving job outside, many workers, let's say, straight workers of Nepal are deceived. That we can see, that we can read as well. They are deceived by agent, they are deceived by the companies as well. So what do you think?
Well, I mean,
How can this problem be solved?
Not easily solved. I mean, partly is looking within Nepal at the recruitment process and thinking how we can create ways that workers can identify opportunities and register for those jobs and get their visas and get the skills they need to fulfill those jobs and then easily get to the countries with the lowest cost possible. Or no cost. And the ILO position really is that workers should not pay anything in the migration process. All the costs should be borne by the employer in the destination country. These are guidelines set by a global consensus of ILO member states on how recruitment should take place. And the Nepal government does have a policy called free visa, free ticket policy, but we're a long way from actually implementing that policy, not just in Nepal, but across the region.
You just said that Nepal government has started new law that is no free visa, free ticket. So what do you think? Is this good?
Yeah, I mean, it'd be very good if we could implement it. And ILO has actually piloted a program with Jordan so that young or women workers can access a job. They can get free training before they go, free transport, and they are provided jobs in companies in Jordan which are monitored by the ILO for their compliance to international labor standards. So it's a pretty good setup, and companies on the receiving end in Jordan are willing to pay for all the cost of the migration, for their skills training, for the transport, everything they need. So that's a good model. And now the question is how we can scale that up.
Yeah. Okay. So as you just said that it is good, yeah. But this already said that free visa, free ticket, but in implementation it is not so.
Yeah, I think it's...
The workers are paying even millions to go out of country, but government has said no, actually money is to be paid. So this is really unsystematic system in employment, I think. So if we can't implement, and if you just write in paper, is it for sake of workers?
Well, I think it's not realistic to expect the whole country overnight to go to this kind of free ticket, free visa system. It's a goal, but I think we need to move into that over time, slowly. The recruitment agencies and even the local agents, they do play an important role in helping workers identify jobs and getting them where they need to go. So I think they do play an important role. The issue is that we would move to a more transparent system where most of the costs are borne by the employer. I think technology can play a role, and organizations like Helvetas and SDC, the Swiss, are supporting the government to develop electronic online registration systems. That's a good way to transparently cut out a lot of the layers in the registration process. And I think as much as possible in the local government structure, that services for migrant workers before they depart are at the local level. That will be very much supportive to this effort to reduce the cost of migration. So it's a process over time, but we really have to tap into the benefits of federalization and the local government strengthening to provide those services to migrants, local levels.
What I think, actually, youths are the pillar of nation. If the development of nation is to be done, youth energy is to be utilized properly. But what I think, if government has started, when it is started like that, it seems that it is promoting youth to go outside. It is encouraging youth to go outside, not to do work in own country. Is this helpful for future of Nepal?
I think ultimately you need these talented young people to stay here, and I do believe the government recognizes that. But getting to the actual realization of that goal is a challenge. But they can get there, I believe. I think with a stable government, we can shift to a growing, dynamic economy where young people do have choices. But young people are part of the solution too. And I see a lot of dynamism in young people, not only accessing jobs, but creating their own businesses, and working in more innovative ways through technology, working in the platform economy. Young people don't necessarily want the same kind of jobs that their parents had. They want more control of their lives, probably more flexibility, more creativity. These are all good things for Nepal. So if we can channel and support that dynamism, we'll also, I think, help youth solve the problems. So we can't expect older people like myself to solve all the problems. Youth are actually part of the solution.
It doesn't mean that youth should not go outside for working. They can go, they can earn and learn the knowledge as well. They can come back and utilize properly. I just said just promoting the traditional way of earning money. Like my father used to do that, I also should do the same thing. So this system, this traditional system, is also to be changed. Like as you said, we can start business as well, or we can do any other innovative activities. Because of that, we can survive. Yeah, but in Nepal, it is not found so. Okay, I don't know the reason. I don't mean to say that Nepalese are dull-minded. No, they are really talented. But yet, why are they not here in Nepal?
Well,
that's really.
Yeah, I think that culturally, there's a lot of what would you say, appreciation for foreign migration. That it's considered, it's a great thing. You can go and access all this money and bring it back and carry a TV set home through the airport and provide for the family. There's a lot of positive values around that, And I think what we also need to shift towards actually recognizing the positive aspects of entrepreneurship, of people going out on their own and starting their own business or trying new things, working outside of the formal structures and being innovative. So I think the values need to shift a little bit, and I think they are. Young people are changing those values. I do see some very innovative young startup companies here.
Okay, as director of ILO for Nepal, what would you like to say? How can we control the overflow of Nepalese youth to go out of country and work?
Well, we have two new very important laws in the country that ILO can provide support to implement. One is the new Labor Act, which provides labor protection and social security to everyone, regardless whether they work in a big company or they start their own business, whether you work in a bank or whether you work as a domestic worker in someone's home. And it's important that we implement these laws because it's one part of that job creation process of making sure that we have a good working environment, that companies can thrive, that there are no strikes in the country because workers are content. Implementing the new Labor Act and the Social Security Act that were just passed is really important input on this overall process to create jobs for young people at home.
Okay, instead of youths, what is ILO doing? I mean, what are the programs launched by ILO for the sake of youths?
So, this issue of skills is important. So we recognize, and many people see in Nepal, that there's this important skills gap, that there's this large training and vocational educational system in the country, but the kind of training that's provided there doesn't really meet the needs of the private sector of businesses. So that's what we call a skills gap. So what we would like to do is work with our business partners in the private sector to better define what skills are required in different occupations and then feed back to the training system so that we have a workforce that actually has the skills that the businesses require. Right now what we see is that companies have to do a lot of the training themselves on site. They train a lot of workers, and then for some difficult reason they often end up going overseas anyway. So it's a big burden on the private sector. So we need to strengthen the technical and vocational training in the country. That's an important step that ILO is working on. Another area is is addressing the kind of work that that we should always take into account those workers who are the most disadvantaged. So the trafficking issue is important for ILO. Child labor is an issue we work on. We have programs on migration to help the government create better policies and institutions to protect migrant workers. So migration, trafficking, child labor are all important parts of our work.
Important parts, okay. Moreover than that, freedom, equality, security, and human rights also are the major issues taken by ILO regarding workers, right? As you said that lots of trainings are given by companies themselves to the workers, and ILO is also providing training skills to the youths, or not?
Well, we don't provide training directly, but we organize, we link private sector to training institutions so we can better create training programs that meet the private sector needs. So it's more we facilitate a dialogue between private sector and the training institutions. We've also helped the government up in centers in 6 districts. So those centers collect information that are available, what kind of jobs are growing. So young people can go to these centers, they can find out what the job opportunities are in the area, they can find out what kind of skills programs are available, they can access internships and apprenticeships through those centers. So that's an important part of our youth employment.
It means ILO just do linking action, right? Private sector and then youth, right? So if any youths are willing to do any work in one country, how does ILO promote them, encourage them?
In what country?
In one country, in other lands, if they are willing.
Well, we support some youth organizations to advocate for job creation at local levels and provincial levels. So this is a new program. We'll work with several youth organizations so that they can become part of the solution. They're at the policy table, they're monitoring the government implementation of laws, they're holding the government accountable to actually create the jobs at home. So young people are making processes.
Lastly, Richard, what message would you like to leave to the workers, or to the youth who are just viewing to us at now?
My main message is, before you migrate, have a look at your own and consider the potential, the growth, the long-term growth potential of staying at home. I think the country needs young people to stay, but people are free to make their choices what's best. And I think ultimately, as a rights-based organization, everyone has the right to migrate or to stay, but I believe Nepal has a great future, and young people have to be part of that future.
Thank you, Richard, for your valuable presence in Mega Talk.
Thank you very much.
Dear viewers, what message we get from Dr. Richard now is we have lots of possibilities in our own country. It doesn't mean that we should not go outside. We can go there, but after going there, what we learn and how we can use that in our own country, that's the major point. Yes, I want to say good luck to all of you. And from today's Mega Talk, I want to say bye for 12. It's me, Besraj Pandey.